We're here today in Accra at Nest with Desmond Koney, the co-founder of Complete Pharma. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, welcome to Ghana, welcome to Nest, and welcome to Complete Pharma.
Thank you so much. For the people that don't know it, what is Complete Pharma?
So, Complete Pharma is a digital agribusiness platform that's helping, it's making it easy for industries to source for their farm produce and also making it easy for everyone to become a farmer.
Okay, so if I have a big company or a big factory that needs to use the agricultural inputs, then I would reach out to you guys.
So if you have a company that uses some agricultural input for your production, you can just place an order and then we grow a farm just for your factory. We take your specifications. So the factories that we've worked with, they give us their specifications in terms of quality, in terms of the crop nutrients that they're looking for, or maybe the ripeness or the maturity level. And so with those specifications, we're able to come up with data-driven production protocols for your production. So that's what we do. Take, for instance, if a pharmaceutical company is looking for something like carrots, and a hotel chain is also looking for carrots. These two businesses are looking for different things in the carrots. So the pharmaceutical company is looking for maybe a particular chemical constituent in the carrots, and the hotel chain may be looking at nutrition value of the carrots. So it's not efficient if you grow these carrots the same way. So that's why we take the specifications from the industry. So with a pharmaceutical company, we have a way by which we grow the carrots just for that that chemical constituent it's looking for. And for the hotel chain, we have a way to grow the carrots to meet their nutritional specifications. So we do all this with the data that we are collecting in production to be able to serve the needs of the businesses.
All right, so on the one hand, you can really cater to the needs of the businesses, what they need as agricultural inputs. And on the other hand, you tell people you can become a farmer from your home.
Exactly.
Tell me more about that. How does that work?
So like you said, on the one hand, we are helping the businesses get their produce that they need. And for the businesses, at their purchasing level, they are competing with each other. So for, let's say, a company like Starbucks, it's competing with other coffee beans companies to source for the same raw material. So what we do when they come to us and we have the order, we make the order available on our platform that anybody who wants to farm to supply for Starbucks can also buy a farm and make that supply happen. So it's a two-sided marketplace. The businesses and then anybody who wants to farm can own a farm, grow for any business. So for instance, you can grow coffee beans for Starbucks, or you can grow coffee beans for Nestle or whichever other company that's on the platform.
Wow. So I can do all of that through Complete Pharma. So I basically go to your website, I check out, okay, you're growing coffee beans this month.
Exactly.
And I want to become a coffee bean farmer. So I make an investment from a computer.
Yeah, from your computer. And you get to see, so we have a web dashboard. You get to see your farm activities. You see your farm in real time. You see what's going into the produce, how the farm work is being carried on, the crop health, all is in the dashboard. So you get to see, you can show your friends around that your farm is on your phone. You can also visit your farm.
I can do that in as a person?
As a person, if you want to come over to see your farm, we organize farm visits for our users to come see their farms, which is very interesting. They come with their family and they come to drive their tractors around on the farms. And the businesses too, they get to see the produce. It gives them enough traceability because they also get to see the produce that they are buying, what is actually going into the, what chemicals are we using for the produce that they are buying. So it gives them that traceability of knowing where their raw materials is coming from. It also gives them the convenience. So think of it like you buy something on Amazon, DHL or UPS can ship it to your house. For the businesses to abroad or in locally, they don't have to um, organize their own logistics. We have logistic companies online that on our platform that they can select, so that these logistic companies brings them their produce wherever they are in the world. So it's very easy and convenient for them. They can just do all of that from their factories or wherever their procurement is done to their doorsteps.
Wow. I mean, let's go into that in depth even more later. But first of all, how did you come up with this idea?
So I'm a mechanical engineer by training. Basically, I worked on designing factory systems, conveyor belt systems, and stuff. And then in the factory, you have a lot of precision and efficiency in delivering your outputs. But when it comes to farming, so my dad was a smallholder farmer, pineapple farmer when I was growing up. So when I came back to Ghana, I mean, you are looking for somewhere to apply your engineering skills, and I thought it would be interesting to use that same idea of a factory for a farm and build farms like they were factories, basically.
Okay, so get the productivity, efficiency up.
Efficiency,
You talked
yeah,
about data.
data, yeah. So when we started, we realized that it's not an isolated. The production is not isolated. It's if it has an effect, the entire value chain is connected. So if some part of the value chain is broken, then your production may not give you the necessary efficiency that you need. So that's why we had to design an end-to-end approach and make digitize the value chain on our platform. So on our platform, you have the demand side and then the supply side on the platform. And so connecting that directly makes the whole process efficient, not just the production.
Wow. Well, so you studied abroad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Where did you go?
So I did design, mechanical design in Delft, Netherlands. Yeah, yeah. And then I did my undergrad here in Ghana, mechanical engineering. Yeah.
Well, so you decide to come back. You see, okay, in other factories, it's highly efficient. You optimize the inputs and the outputs. But in farming, especially smallholder farming,
Smallholder
it's
farming, yeah.
not being
It's not
being
really
done.
efficient. Yeah. So because my dad was a smallholder farmer, like I said, so that I've seen a lot of frustration about the smallholder farming system, which is very popular in Africa. And I think it's my personal philosophy that it's not solving the problem. We need to rather help these farmers to farm commercially, which is what Complete Farmer will do. Instead of what happens right now is most industries, when they want to buy their farm produce, they have a middleman in Ghana or in whichever country produces these raw materials, and then the middleman buys from different farmers, so they aggregate the yield, right? But instead of that, what we are doing is to aggregate the farms instead of aggregating the yield, and so that gives us the economies of scale when we are producing to be more efficient. It reduces our operation costs instead of moving from one farm to another farm. And then you're able to get your input at wholesale prices, yeah, because it's a big farm. So it gives you a lot of leverage. So that's basically our operational model, is to have all the farms in one location. So it's one big location. It's basically a commercial farm. And even though it's a commercial farm, it's in blocks. So the farmers come and each of them have their blocks that they work on. And that improves their efficiency. It also helps us to be able to monitor and control their activities. Because if you are growing food in different soils, two different ways, it's very hard to get a single quality output. You get different standards of quality from different farms. So that's our approach to farming. And so, yeah, all our farms are big farms, and we are helping all these smallholder farmers farm commercially. Basically.
So let's say I'm a smallholder farmer and I have a small farm,
Yeah.
and I want to work with Complete Farmer. What does it look like? Because you say you have a big farm.
Yeah.
How do I participate in your big
Yeah,
farm?
so we have for all our smallholder farmers, we have a due diligence to select like the best farmers, And then also we have a training, a capacity building program that we help them understand the current production of certain foods. When they come to our farms, they just have to come to our farms. They don't need to come with their tools. They don't need to come with anything. We have the lands available. We just, once you've passed the program, we just demarcate an area for you, and then we give you all the logistics you need to basically produce on your farm. We have agronomists who are managing they're on the farms with the farmers, and they get to see the farmers' activities and stuff. So for the smallholder farmers, it's more like a day job than, because normally a smallholder farmer would have to wait maybe 6 months till harvest before they get some money. But when they work on our farms, they have that monthly revenue, because we also pay them for their services. So they don't have to wait. And it makes them more financially stable as well, compared to having to wait half of the year before you make some money as well. Yeah. So I think that's the interesting insights that the model also provides to
for the
farmers.
smallholder farmers. All right, yeah, because I was going to ask. So basically, they have their own smallholder farm.
Yeah.
That does not give them a monthly income, and then additionally they can work on your farms.
Exactly.
So how do you find big plots of land? Do you buy the land? Do you lease it?
The good thing is, I think in Africa there's a tradition to farming where you don't buy land for farming. So what we've done is to get land through community engagement. So we go see the chiefs and the elders, and we tell them this is what we want to do. We do not want to own the land. The land is going to be for you. It's going to be for your children. But what we want to do is to set up this economic activity on the land. And so for them, it's a win-win, because they still get to make money and they still own their lands. Yeah. Whereas for like other industries competing for lands like real estate, the owner has to own the land, and that takes ownership from the community. So we work with the community elders to get land. And once they've seen that we are employing people in the community, we are bringing tractors and some economic activity into the community, they always even extend the lands that they give us. We also have a contractual agreement. All this is not just goodwill, but it's also in a contract with the community as well. We've also gotten some lands through the government. In Ghana, the government has lands specially left for commercial agriculture projects. So we've also gotten lands through the government. We've not taken lands from individual, because there's a lot of litigation when it comes to individual land ownership. So basically it's on the community level and then through the government.
Okay, wow. Very interesting. So that sounds like a complex project, because you have so many things to deal with. Yeah. You are educating smallholder farmers on this commercial farming. You have a marketplace, so it's a two-sided model. Yeah. I mean, you have big buyers, but then you still have the crowd to invest. What was your first step when you conceived of the idea? How did you bring it to life?
I think basically we also had to become farmers. That's where it started from. We had to become farmers to learn what was wrong with farming in Africa. So we started, my co-founders and ourselves, we started farming with our own money first, to learn what the missing gaps are. And it's because like agriculture in Africa is very, very, like a lot of things are happening in an isolated place. Research is happening, but nobody is applying it in the field. The commodity market is taking place, but the farmers do not participate in it. Yeah. So it's a lot of disjointed things. So from our learnings of our own farm, we saw what components were necessary to drive the model. So when we started, we didn't start by training farmers. We didn't start with the marketplace. So after our first harvest, we tried selling, and then we realized that a lot of people try to cheat us, basically, just like all farmers are cheated. So the middlemen, they have to buy at a lower price from the farmers and sell at a higher price to the industries, because they have to take care of their warehousing costs and then their logistics costs. So that made it quite expensive for us to sell. and make any profit. So that's where we have to start building our own marketplace. And then once we build the marketplace, we realize that if you really want to get, as a farmer, if you really want to get the big buyers, the end users, you have to have the volume and be able to have the quality before you're able to access these markets. So it's easy to get like the local informal market sectors with your produce, but you don't also make the highest margins. So to be able to make the highest margin, we also then learn that we have to have some quality control in our process, in our farming process. So then we resorted to a research institution, and we realized that there was so much research that has been done in crop production in Africa value chains, and no one is implementing it. So we had to now go there, and those people are they are lab scientists, so they also don't have the technical expertise. So then we had to now get like an agronomist who can take the research, and then the research is very academic. Extract that and be able to pass it on to the farmers to be able to do that. That's when we realized that we need to have a training program, because a lot of the research you didn't see what you have to do, and so for an uneducated farmer, it will be difficult for them to make any use of the research sitting on the shelves. So that's why we have to then start training farmers basically to use the protocols in the research. And the data part is because it's more of something we also discovered in research, where most of the produce that we produce in Africa don't get to high-end markets because these markets have very strict specifications. So something like applying the wrong amount of fertilizer can change the shelf life of the produce, or maybe practicing a certain irrigation scheme can maybe change make your ripening faster or slower. And so those are insights that we started realizing, and we decided to collect data on the production, and that's when the data play came in. The data, for instance, like there's a way we've discovered how to maybe grow tomatoes specifically for a diabetic patient. Based on it's more like the plant to grow anyways. Your responsibility as a farmer is to guide it in how it should grow. So even though it's not using GMO, but it's knowing how to apply certain things, certain nutrients that will guide the crop to grow in a certain way. And so that's what we want to do with the data. It's because also we realize that when you want to farm in Africa, you probably have to go and ask. There's no data available for you to know where do I start from, what do I start with, who do I start with. So this data, we are hoping that in future it's able to, anyone who wants to go into farming knows what they are doing and can do it as an expert farmer. So when you look at the entire business model, that's why we call it a complete farmer. It's an end-to-end process. Yeah.
Wow, this is very impressive. I mean, you already hinted at it a little bit. You said for you to learn the ins and outs of the industry, from beginning to end, you became a farmer yourself.
Yeah.
I love that. That's like the best market research you can do.
That's the best.
Very practical and hands-on. How did you finance the entire venture? Because you just mentioned you take data from lab scientists, and now you basically create the how to apply those insights in the real world. How did you finance this? Because I can hardly imagine that it was profitable from the beginning to do that. It's almost like laying the foundation for everyone else to come, right?
Exactly. So I think my co-founders and I, before we started, when we came to Ghana, I wanted to do a job where I'm applying my engineering skills. But because no production is done in manufacturing in Ghana, you may have to become a technician. So my co-founder and I, we didn't want to become technicians for that reason. We started freelancing to make some money. So before Complete Farmer, we used to do projects together, build machines or systems for organizations who want to do some work. So we built like a fog harvesting machine to provide clean water for a community. Do basically mechanical engineering. So that's where we got some money to start from. But that money finished very fast because Farming is very, very tedious. But I think for us, like for me, the good thing growing up in Africa is there's infrastructure deficit. Like when you live in Africa and you live elsewhere, you know what lacks in Africa. And so for a business, before you start doing your business, there's that infrastructure bridge you have to cross to build your infrastructure before your business takes off. So within that period, you need some capital, but nobody is providing you that capital. So you have to finance that capital. So most of what we were doing in the first year was to build the infrastructure to be able to, and the infrastructure is not necessarily physical. It can be the networks, creating the networks, being able to know who in the industry can provide certain services for you. So that was what we did pretty much during the first year, to build the networks with these research institutions. And you'll be amazed, there are people who are willing to also help. And so before that, the business gets started, we have the infrastructure. We started building prototypes of the data collection device in the lab. And those things do not take so much money. But if you start the business, but we didn't figure it all out. There was some infrastructure we didn't build, because like on the farms, where the farms are, there's no internet access. And you may think you have a business idea, then you start implementing it and realize you have to now solve the problem of internet access because the infrastructure doesn't exist. So then we have to build our own internet infrastructure on the farm so that the data can be collected from the sensors to the cloud. And so I think it's just the approach is to build your infrastructure first, that you need to, because I think even Uber has that problem in Ghana. Ghana, people don't do payments much with card. So the payment infrastructure is not there for Uber to make profits. And so like any startup starting, like we knew that you have to like bridge that infrastructure gap before you're able to carry on your business. So that was much of what we invested in the initial days. And basically the reason why we also went into farming ourselves was to make the connections, was to be able to meet the people in the industries. So the first year we didn't make any profits, but then we made the connections. We know who to see for land. We know how to procure land in Ghana. We knew how to sell, which logistic operators are the players in the agriculture market. So those were the learnings that I think our initial capital afforded us. So after doing all this, we were able to then win the pitch competition with Cosmos Energy. That gave us the $50,000 to start this business with. But prior to that, we basically have to you have to bootstrap your learning. So you have to learn and you have to build the infrastructure, and no investor will give you money to do that in Africa. So you have to bootstrap that period before you start. Yeah.
Wow, I love that. I think there's so many insights also for other founders here.
Yeah.
Because one, I hear that you were already an entrepreneur sort of before you started this business, because you were delivering projects and solutions to buyers, NGOs, whoever.
Yeah.
So I think that must have also given you a sense of security that, when it comes to rent, my food and all this, I will always be able to make it, right? So if I run out of money personally, I can freelance, I think that's quite a powerful lesson, because I recently read somewhere, startups don't run out of money, founders run out of money. And I thought that, that's very true, because as long as you can still have enough money to work, continue, educate yourself, as you mentioned, you can continue working on your vision.
Exactly. I think it's very, I think in Africa, or if anyone wants to become an entrepreneur in Africa, you have to see yourself, the entrepreneur, first of all, as your first business, before your business itself as the second business. Because if you are not really having, if you have to deal with rent and food, and you've not really, that's also the infrastructure bridge. Getting accommodation in Accra is a whole lot of problems. So you have to start solving that infrastructure deficit for yourself first. Make sure that you have some support to lay back on. before you then take the jump. But if you don't gap that bridge for yourself, and then you start the business, it's you see that most of the resources from the business is then fed into your infrastructure, your personal life, your personal infrastructure, and then it makes it very difficult. It makes it very difficult.
Yeah, I think especially in a business case like yours, where you said, okay, we had to build infrastructure. It was not just about our business; it was about bringing internet to a farm. You know, that is real development work. Another entrepreneur she recently mentioned, when you start a business in Africa, and I mean that's very broad now, but in her case, I think it was also true. She said you're committing to developing an entire infrastructure,
Exactly.
not just building a
And
small
not just-
business.
exactly. So like for all the infrastructure deficits gaps that we have solved, if there is any other startup coming, it's just a plug-in for them. They just take that and plug it in for themselves. It's not just it's really true. It's not really just about the business in itself. It's also for like the community. Most of like the farmers that we work with, they they now they now believe they can build a commercial farm. Just one farmer thinks, okay, so we started. Each farmer has 10 acres of farms. Now each farmer wants to take 200 acres of farms for themselves because then they also now can they've gotten the capacity to manage bigger farms. They've gotten the skill. So that gap in itself, that skill gap for an African farmer to be able to farm commercially, it's also been bridged. If the farmer chooses not to work with Complete Farmer, he can go build a commercial farm somewhere for himself. So it's really I think that's basically how African problems would have to be solved. Um, it's and so once you see a lot of innovations happening in the system, then we can get to see the solutions for these problems as well.
Wow, very, very, very inspiring. Good stuff. Did you always know that you want to become an entrepreneur?
I think not really. I think I thought I wanted to become an engineer. That I was very sure of. Um, but then I think after my engineering degree, I just didn't want to become an engineer who works in an organization on a production floor. I basically wanted to like engineer a system, and that's what made me enter into entrepreneurship because it gave me the freedom to be able to build something meaningful for me. So I think and I think uh, it's I think most people in Africa go into entrepreneurship for survival. Basically, it's to survive or to preserve some part of your identity. That's why people go into entrepreneurship. I think for me, it was to, when I started doing the projects, it was to put food on the table because I didn't believe I have to become a technician. And so it's that kind of rebellion against that system that what drove me into entrepreneurship. So I think most people are just not satisfied and they just have the drive to like, I think maybe I can do more about this, and that's how they find themselves becoming entrepreneurs. Because I think people in Africa have not seen a lot of success stories from entrepreneurship. So for someone now to go into entrepreneurship, it's not because they think they can make a lot of money, because there hasn't been a proof of someone making millions in entrepreneurship. It's just, I think those people have come to terms with themselves that this is how the system is, but I don't want to go by this system, and I need to do something for myself. And I think because also there's a lot of lack in Africa. A lot of people are driven, so you see a lot of Africans being more entrepreneurial, not even because of their choosing, but because it's just the human spirit to want something better, to want something better for themselves or for the community. And that's why most people, I think that's the basic motivation for because if not, every African entrepreneur go to Silicon Valley or another place where the resources are there to do business. Yeah. So I think for me it was deeper than that. Yeah. Mm.
Now, to be honest, what got me very excited when I first heard about Complete Pharma is that, well, you have this impact that you're creating, but you also make it easy for people to become investors. Now, can you share a bit more about the possibilities for people to invest? Like, how much money do I need to bring in to become a complete farmer for my laptop?
So we've had different users on our platform. We've had students who come together as a group and then they form. So now the new dashboard or the new products that we have, you can come together with your friends to buy a farm. So it's more like forming a cooperative, which happens in real life. People form cooperatives to own a farm. So you need as little as maybe $500 for an acre. And we've seen people like retirees, people going on their pension, saying, I want to have a farm for my pension. And they put their money in that. We've seen lawyers, we've seen business people who have like a 8 to 5 job, but have the money and they just go into farming. We've also seen people who are just interested in food security. They want to, and some people are just interested in the impact, and then they want to help these farmers that we have to farm on the platform. So we've seen a lot of different motivations for the users that come to the platform. In the long term, we want to make the platform more automated so that we want it to become a way of farming where, because everyone eats, everyone produces food. So if you have a favorite brand that you like, maybe you like a particular cornflakes, and the cornflakes company, you want to grow for that cornflakes company, you could do that on the platform. And so basically make everyone assist in food production. And for the industries to want to take up food. So we want it to become, we want to go mainstream like that, where instead of people just going on Facebook or social media, they also go to the farm on their phones and have actual food production going on for people, for industries. Yeah.
And it's also lucrative, right? It's not a charity. I don't give my money away and never see it back. I'm investing in my own in part of this farm, right?
Exactly. So
so today, what could I invest in?
So right now we just opened soya beans farms.
Okay.
We are soya beans farm for a soya milk factory that placed their order. So you could get a soya bean farm in.
So Dalsy and I, we both each put 500 euros together as our mini cooperative.
Yeah. You could come together with your friends and say, okay, guys, let's own this farm. Let's produce soya beans for this factory, and then you also get to see all the updates. That's the cool part. We are making the products look like a farm. So to you, the farmer, we are bringing the farm on your digital device. So that's also the interesting part. You can show it to your friends, see how your crops are doing, and then you could just start farming. It's very easy.
So we invest later today via PayPal or credit card? Or?
You could do so with your credit card.
Okay. So we do a credit card investment. Invest into soybeans. And then in how many months?
Soya beans in 6 months.
6 months. In 6 months, you send us back our money.
Yeah, you just give me your bank details. I send you back your money with the returns.
Okay, how much is 25%? 25% in 6 months.
In 6 months.
Hey, this is crazy, right?
Yeah, it is.
It's hitting my bank account. No.
You see, the good thing with food production in Africa is it's very cheap to produce in Africa. It's very cheap to produce food in Africa because you don't have to do anything to the soil. Okay, the soil is right. You don't have to. The only thing you have to worry about is getting an expert to do the farming. So then the margins that you get, and if you look at world food prices, it's always increasing. Soya prices are increasing because of the US-China trade war. A lot of Chinese companies are buying soya beans from Africa. So the prices for soya is increasing drastically, and there's always going to be demand for food. People have to eat every day. Sometimes some of the orders we get, we are not able to even fulfill those orders because the industries are looking for the raw materials to produce food.
I find that very interesting because this was going to be my next question. What is your current challenge? And because it's a two-sided market, do you have more issues finding the off-takers, or do you have more challenges finding the investors? So it's the investors and creating more farms.
It's the investors. I think for the industries, once you serve one industry and you met their requirements,
they want it again
their
and
next
again.
order is even going to be much more higher than what you provided for them. So the business side is not so much of a challenge because these industries, like I said, they are competing for the food resources. They are competing with other factories in their value chain to get the food resources from Africa. So it's really the investors, and it's also something that we can't take debt from the bank from, because debt in Africa is very expensive. So then it's just getting enough investors in our pipeline for these farms.
Wow. So let's talk about another thing, because to me, you mentioned the numbers. I invest in food. I support smallholder farmers, bring financial sustainability, produce more food. All that just sounds reasonable, makes sense to me at least. And now even the returns of 25%, which would be very difficult to earn on other investments in, let's say, Europe or anywhere. So the only question that comes to my mind is, let's say I'm in the diaspora or somewhere, I hear about this, and I would be, okay, how can I be sure that I get my money back? And I did some research, and you have an insurance even for that, right?
Yeah. So farming is also still risky.
Yeah.
So we take insurance on our farms. So let's say there's a flood, bushfire, pest attack. We have an insurance coverage for those natural causes.
Okay.
So you get 80% of your money back, because. So that's the thing with the agriculture in Africa, is because there's no data, insurance companies don't know how to set the premiums or quantify the risks. Right now, we are getting 80%, but we are hoping that the more data we collect, we can also negotiate for a better premium to get more holistic coverage. And the technologies we are investing in helps us predict certain things. We can predict the weather, we can predict pest attacks and stuff. So being able to do those things takes out a lot of the risk from farming, which we are hoping to achieve in the nearest future. Yeah.
And the business model of Complete Pharma is that you take a percentage of the profit, basically.
For us, we have to make sure we have a successful season, and then when we sell, we share the profits with the users.
With the investors.
Yeah, with the investors. Yeah.
Wow. Desmond, it's just mind-blowing. I think we have to share a lot in the show notes about how people can get more information about this, how they can become complete farmers with you guys.
Yeah.
My final question would be, oh no, actually I have two more questions. If you could partner with anyone and ask them for anything, who would you reach out to and what would you ask them for?
So I think a lot of agriculture technologies in the West are far advanced, but none of these companies are looking at the African value chain. For instance, crops like cassava do not grow in the US, so there's no incentive for big agriculture input companies to manufacture tools for the cassava value chain. So I think what we'll be looking for will be those kind of partnerships that helps us build technology for the African value chain, for crops in the African value chain. Like, for instance, fertilizers in other parts of the world are very customized for the particular crop. And because, like I said again, the African value chain is unique to Africa. So nobody is doing fertilizer just for Africa. People have to buy the general purpose composition of fertilizer. So we are looking for partnership institutions who are interested in the African value chain in terms of mechanization or inputs, improved seed varieties, and other forms of technology to basically partner with us. Even not partner with us, to start looking at Africa in itself as a market. But would want to, because also most of these industries, because there's not much commercial farming being done, for them you have to consider the cost and how much they get in return if they should invest in such a thing. And so I think also we have the responsibility to make sure that we are doing commercial farming to be able to attract this industry's attention. It's a demand and supply thing. So we are looking to partner with such industries to improve agriculture in Africa. Yeah.
And my final question would be, if you can give advice to a young person in Ghana, what would that be?
I think everyone in Ghana is in a place, or in Africa is in a place where I think now millennials like myself, we are not satisfied with the status quo, and we want to change like the narrative of Africa. I think no matter how small you think your idea is, you just have to start, because that contributes to the bigger picture. That adds up to a collective effort. It's not just you. I feel like what I'm doing is right now I'm doing it in Ghana, but it's adding up to someone effort in Kenya, someone's effort in Uganda or in Zimbabwe. And so I think we need to see more of that. And I know a lot of millennials and youth are being faced with the challenge of unemployment and things like that. I think we need to start building this. We shouldn't go with the status quo. We should go with what we truly want for our lives and the change we want to see. We should just start no matter how small it is. Yeah.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you so much for sharing, brother.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, Thomas. Yeah.